Together with me, Caitlin O'Ryan, the podcast that celebrates not having your shit together. On today's episode, we have Avril Devaney MBE. Avril began her career as a mental health nurse before working her way up through the NHS and finally being appointed as Director of Nursing in Cheshire and Wirral, where she remained until her retirement. In 2016, Avril received an MBE in the Queen's New Year's Honours List for services to mental health nursing. This is an extremely personal episode for me, and I'm so grateful to Avril for agreeing to come on the podcast and to talk to me. As you'll hear in the episode, Avril is my honorary godmother and has been someone I've admired throughout my life, not only because of what she's achieved in her career, but also because of what she's experienced and achieved in her personal life. She met her amazing husband Jim later on in life, which gives us all hope. And a few years later, they had a gorgeous son, Jamie, who unfortunately passed away 4 years later after a short illness during a family holiday and fundraising trip in Uganda. Avril talks candidly in the episode about the loss of Jamie and how her and Jim have had to readjust to a life without him and to learn to, as they call it, live alongside their grief. Determined to find the meaning in the loss, Avril and Jim, along with close friends and colleagues, established a charity in Jamie's memory that went from working with one hospital in Uganda in 2011 to 25 hospitals by 2023, and has been instrumental in helping to shape and develop mental health care across Uganda. Not only this, but Avril and Jim went on to adopt 2 boys, and we talk in the episode about their journey in raising children who have experienced trauma. As you can probably tell, she's amazing. I love her so much, and I know you'll love her by the end of this episode. I hope you enjoy listening to it. Here's Avril Devaney MBE. Well, hello, Avril.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You have been very much on the top of my list of people that I've wanted on. I think I didn't tell you that until we were at my granddad's 90th birthday.
Yeah.
And you had been secretly listening to the episodes.
I had.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wrapping Christmas presents.
Oh, really?
Listening away, yeah.
That's nice. We've got a fan. That's the one fan. The one listener that we have out there. Yeah, so I'm very grateful to you for coming on.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah. We'll begin with saying how we know each other.
Yeah.
So you are my godmother, unofficial godmother.
Yeah.
But I call you my godmother.
Surrogate godmother.
Because you're my sister's godmother.
Yeah.
Best friend to my parents.
Yes.
Went to uni with them.
No. No, I trained with your dad.
Oh, was that not at uni?
No, no, that was before nurse training.
Right,
It was at
okay.
uni. So your dad he did his degree.
Right.
And then went to nurse training.
Oh.
And I started nurse training.
So that was Lancaster.
In Lancaster,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've known them since they were...
I was 18,
You were
when I
18.
met your dad. Your dad would have been 21 because he'd finished his degree.
Right.
And your mum 20.
20.
Yeah.
And you went on, like, couples holidays with them.
Oh, I had my first holiday abroad with them.
You were their first child.
The man at the restaurant near us used to call your dad King Tim because he had 2 wives. And it was just me tagging along, you know. And your mum and dad were good enough to let me.
Oh, that's very nice. And then you've been, like, best friends since then.
Yeah, through everything.
For people who don't know, how would you describe your career and what you have done in that sense before we get into the questions?
Well, I qualified as a mental health nurse in 1986 with your father.
Yeah.
And then I had a very long nursing career where I was given opportunities to really make a difference.
Yeah.
And of course I relished that. I didn't meet Jim until I was 40,
right.
So I had a long time of sublimating away and progressing.
Yeah.
So I became a nurse director when I was 38.
Wow.
And really have tried to just make things better for people who have mental illness and other people as well. And I've been able to be creative and innovate. Yeah. And I've been in a position where I can make things happen. Yeah. Through that, which has been amazing.
Yeah.
So I've had a wonderful career. I've been to Downing Street, the Palace.
Wow. For the MBE.
For the MBE, yeah. More of that later.
Let's just get that in there. It's a bloody MBE.
Yeah, and along the way, I've worked with some amazing people. I've learnt so much about what it is to be human and to be able to live your full life within whatever circumstances you find yourself. And along the way, I've applied that to myself as well. Yeah. So it's been a real journey of learning and understanding. Yeah. And what I thought was important when I set out is very different to what I feel is important now.
Wow. Because when you started out, I'm interested in, you know, what drew you to working with mental health initially, because I always think this of my dad growing up. Like when I would tell people that my dad was a mental health nurse, the stigma around it then was so much more than it is now. Like we now live in a time where everyone's talking about the mental health, everyone's got mental health. Mental illness is a separate thing and a different thing to understand, but what drew you to working in that sphere?
It's interesting that you ask that, because at the time, it was considered a less obvious thing to do. I remember going for a careers interview, which we used to have at school, and she said, "Why don't you be a nurse?" And I thought, nurse, tubes, machines, medications, and that wasn't for me. So I knew I wanted to work with people. I've got a younger sister who's got learning disabilities, and I'd seen some of the challenges that she'd faced, and some of the prejudice that she'd faced, and how she was marginalised, and us as a family as well. Yeah. So I knew I wanted to work with people, because I thought we can make a difference. We've got to make a difference. So I thought I was going to be a social worker. I did a pre-social work course combined with A-levels, and you had lots of placements. And I did a placement on a mental health ward. Right. And there was a lovely lady there who taught me how to crochet. Wow. And as I was leaving, the staff who were on said, "She's not spoken for 2 weeks."
No way.
And it blew me away, because I had no idea. I was just being me, having a conversation. Because I was there on placement. I didn't have any of the responsibility that the staff had. I was just there chatting. Yeah. And to know that I'd made that difference, that's when the penny dropped, and I realised that your biggest intervention is your relationship, and that was it. I applied. Wow. And by lucky coincidence, I ended up on the same course as your dad in Lancaster, and I never looked back. Yeah. It was definitely the best career that I could have had. Sometimes when I was out, I wouldn't say that. I would just say I was a nurse.
That's so interesting.
Because the reaction that you get, you must be very brave, and then and it's people's misconceptions and their own prejudices, and this black and white, either you're sane or you're insane, that actually we have come a long way from there now, and some of the things that I was involved in my career, I think has really helped to make a difference and challenge that stigma, and now people are much more willing to talk about mental health. I still think there's a lot of confusion about mental illness and severe mental illness. Yeah. And you see that bubbling up all the time. But in terms of people's willingness to talk about it, then it's out there now.
Totally.
Yeah. Now all we need is the resources to support people.
Yeah. People are self-diagnosing themselves with a lot of things, and it's amazing because we are having these conversations about mental health, but I think perhaps people now consider it as like a sliding scale, as opposed to like clinically having a mental illness that needs treating in a different way to like being sad sometimes. Yeah. You know, whilst we're having more conversations about it, that is now the nuance of the conversation now needs to start taking place more.
Yeah. sometimes we border on putting a clinical name to something that is innately human.
Yeah.
And we take away from the human experience by making people feel like it shouldn't be happening, it doesn't need to be happening. If you get the right tablets, then you don't have to experience that. So I think we need to be careful with that, because the whole experience of being human is that you do have the range of emotions, and sometimes you do feel confident, sometimes you don't, sometimes you feel up, sometimes you feel down,
sometimes you feel anxious,
and sometimes you're ultra confident,
and sometimes it's hard to tell what is the world that you are just responding to, and like you know, our lives being so different now, being on social media all the time, and that constant anxiety of being on all of the time, like, and whether that needs medicating, you know.
I think vulnerable, because we don't know yet the long-term impact, that the new ways of being that they're going to, what impact they're going to have.
So then you moved up to the director of nursing.
Director of nursing,
And how was that different? So that was more the business of...
the business was a big part of it. But it was, for me, it was more the opportunity for the leadership.
Right.
So the way that the executive team would support the culture of the organisation. Now, I have a leadership style that's servant leadership. So I saw my job very much about creating the space for clinical staff to be at their best.
Right.
So it was like breaking down barriers, getting resources, providing a vision, training and support so that people could do the best.
Wow.
That's not everybody's approach, but that was the way that I did it, and I loved doing that. And I loved watching colleagues flourish, because we created the right environment for them to flourish. Because of course, when your colleagues are flourishing, then the people who are accessing the services are getting the best out of the staff.
Totally.
So I loved it. It was absolutely amazing. It felt very privileged to be in that role, and I was very careful with the responsibility that I carried in that role.
And how many years did you do that for?
17.
Wow.
In one organisation, which is pretty unusual. When I first got the job, I was told that execs stay in a role like that for 5 years, then need to move on. So when it got to 5 years and I was still in the middle of being creative and seeing results, I didn't want to move on. And then eventually the chief exec that I was working with said to me, because I was worried I had a sell by date, and do I need to move on now? Do I need to move on now? And she said, I will tell you if I think you need to move on. But she said, I could see you working out your career here.
Wow.
And just her saying that took, it was like, no, I'm right here. It's okay to be here. And actually some of the transformational changes you can't do in 5 years.
No.
You just scratch the surface in 5 years. So, and I think it takes all sorts. I think you do need a refreshing, but you also need an organisational memory
as well, don't you?
And somebody who remembers when we tried that before and why it wasn't right for this community, and what happened over there and why we need to do it this way over here, so it all comes together.
Amazing. Okay, well, on a scale of shit to together, how are you feeling today?
I think I'm at about a 7.
A 7, okay.
7. I'm feeling good. It's been a lovely week. Jim, my husband, and our younger son Daniel have been away at our caravan on the Isle of Man building a shed. And I've had some time with Alex, who's 12, our other son, and we've had some lovely outings and time together. So, and I've not been rushing around with appointments, and
because it's been half term.
It's the holidays, so So it feels like the pressure has been off. I've had a lovely lunch with your parents and you. And I'm okay today.
Good. And the sun is shining.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though we were expecting
a storm, which is why Jim can't make his return until Monday.
So he's stranded on the Isle of Man and we get time together.
Yeah. So what does having your shit together mean to you then? What does that look like normally?
I think it's about having a purpose. Mm-hmm. Knowing what that purpose is, liking that purpose, and feeling competent and confident that you can deliver on that purpose. And I think it's another way of saying feeling fulfilled.
Yes.
So and that's a big thing for me, feeling like you're living a full life and feeling fulfilled.
Yeah, I think one of the things is like feeling like you're contributing, doesn't it? I think for you, you're a big old contributor.
It's massive,
so if you've got a purpose and you feel like you're able to do it and you know why you're getting up in the morning, that must be a big thing.
Yeah, I always know what my purpose is, and I always want the purpose that I've got at the time. I think the difference is how confident and competent
That's interesting.
I'm feeling. And competent is the key.
Yeah.
Because if I'm feeling competent, then the confidence is there. So it's about competence.
Yeah. And how do you find the confidence and the confidence then?
Some of it is if I'm seeing results.
Yeah.
So if I'm seeing things that I recognise. And it doesn't have to be about me. It could be about, like, Alex remembering all the different things that he needs for school, getting his packed lunch and all that. So that's evidence, right through to getting my MBE. That was evidence of competence. So, and I think then confidence goes hand in hand with that. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so focused on my career, because that's a place where I've felt most competent for a long time. And it showed, because I would give a lot. And even when I wasn't feeling confident and competent, I'd know what to do. Who to talk to.
You knew what you were driving towards.
Yes, and I'd know how to get over those glitches.
Wow. Gosh, that's so good.
And it's not the same in personal life. and I don't know why that is, but I think I've floundered more in my personal life than I have in my career.
I wonder if that's because with career there's more of like a not for every career, because you know being an actor is not like this at all, but normally you're kind of on a trajectory which is like steps that you're climbing, so you kind of know the direction that you're going in, whereas I think in your personal life so many things can come up that you're not in control of. For example, if you're like knowing that you want to be in a long-term relationship, there's so little that you can actually control about that, because you have to be just open to meeting the person. Do you know what I mean? Because you met Jim later, didn't you?
I was 40. And it's quite interesting because my mum met my dad when she was 15.
Wow.
He was the one.
This is very similar to my parents.
It is. And they were together forever.
And it messes with you.
So I fully expected to meet the one when I was 15, 16. Totally. And I did meet who I thought was the one when I was 16. But he clearly wasn't. And that was quite a shock because you're right, I couldn't control it. I tried. I tried so hard. And it was one of those on-off relationships, so it really messed with me. And it was in that relationship, because like 16, so I was doing my A-levels, doing a pre-social work course, that I thought, well, I better have a plan B, because it wasn't working out like it had for my mum. So that was when I started looking at careers and decided that I was going to do my nurse training. So who knows what would have happened if he had been the one? Then it would have been a very different life. Because then I think I did sublimate. I also had a tendency to fall for the wrong kind of guys. That not all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, but some were clearly the wrong kind of guys. And I think I was looking for something that I didn't need.
Yeah.
And it was only when I got to my late 30s that I realised that I didn't actually need somebody who would look after me.
Yeah.
That I was taking care of myself and have been doing for years.
Yeah.
So I started looking for different things in men.
That's so interesting.
Lo and behold,
Jim pops along.
And the biggest thing about Jim is he makes me laugh.
Yeah.
He makes me laugh. He's so much fun, and we've got so much in common in terms of what we like to do together. We've both said that if we'd have met even 10 years earlier, we wouldn't have clicked.
You wouldn't have been ready for each other.
We were both ready, and we both knew what we were looking for and what was right for us.
So interesting, isn't it? Because I think that's what I recognise in myself as well at times, is when I've been in relationships and they've not worked out, it's been because maybe I've been looking for someone to like fill a hole within myself.
Yeah.
Or because I feel like I need to be in a relationship or this and this.
Yeah.
But actually, like, you hear people say that it's about being like your full individual selves and coming together and like adding to each other as opposed to like being the answer for each other.
Yeah.
You know?
I totally get that, and you know that a lot sooner than I do.
Yes.
It's so right.
True, isn't it?
I was looking for my perception, my childhood perception, and you know, all the fairy tales and everything that you get. You know, you meet the right one and you live happily ever after, and all of that. I was looking for me happily ever after.
Yeah.
When actually that's not what I needed at all.
You needed like a companion on the journey as opposed to the rescuer.
Needed a partner. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before the podcast, I asked you to think of an object that makes you feel like you've got your shit together.
Surprise!
Oh, what's that? What's
It's
that,
an MBE.
Wow, I don't think I've seen this in person.
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
It's gorgeous. Silver cross.
And I didn't see it because the Queen pins it on you.
Wow.
So I didn't see it until you get bustled out into a little room, and they take it off you and put it in the lovely box, and I went, wow.
Yeah, it's very nice, isn't it? On a little pink bow.
Yeah. I was about 13 years into my nurse director role, and I'd been doing a lot of work on supporting people with mental illness and smoking.
Yeah.
And breaking down lots of barriers around challenging the idea. At the time, there was this assumption that for some people, especially with severe mental illness, they've got nothing else. Don't take the smoking away from them. There was another belief that you couldn't possibly... We'd gone smoke-free in restaurants and that, and back, I think it was 2006.
Yeah.
And this was 2014.
Yeah.
So we were aiming to be a smoke-free trust. There was nice guidelines that had come out saying that mental health hospitals needed to be smoke-free. So there was a lot of challenges, but we did become the first organisation to become smoke-free. It was probably one of the most challenging things that I ever did in my career, because there was fierce opposition from some from some quarters, lots of support from others, but because there was no other trust that had done it, then there was a bit of, you're out there. And I'd also led for several years a challenging stigma campaign in the organisation, breaking down barriers for people who've got mental illness, supporting them in the workplace. I led a region-wide project on employment and a support group for employers to support them to employ people with mental illness, and just challenging stigma really, and showing that actually you if you employ somebody who's got mental illness, they can be brilliant, you know, with the right support around them. So it was those sorts of things that were going on. I was actually on adoption leave when I got the letter.
Wow.
And the first letter that you get comes from Parliament, doesn't come from the palace.
Wow.
Because they're saying, you've been nominated, will you accept it? So they're asking you.
Because they don't want you to reject the Queen.
I saw this letter and I opened it and I saw honours, and I didn't believe it. It was one of those moments, and before I'd gone on adoption leave, I'd nominated a colleague,
someone else.
So my first reaction was, well, why are they writing to me at home? I'm on adoption leave. You know, this should have gone to work. And then I read it and I gave it to Jim and I said, you better read that, because I couldn't believe it. And then you're not allowed to tell anybody.
Wow.
So it just was a big shock, actually. I was on adoption leave. Mm-hmm. We were struggling a lot.
Yeah.
And this came out of the blue, which meant that we had a trip to London. Yeah. The day itself was amazing from the day before. My mum and dad came.
Wow.
So, and at the time, my mum, she was very poorly. She was having treatment for malignant melanoma, which is quite a severe form of cancer. And she was in a wheelchair. So we were able to do things like we topped up their train, so they went first class.
Wow.
So they were treated
like royalty
themselves. The night before, we went to watch War of the Worlds. It was the anniversary version of it. It was absolutely fantastic. Yeah. We were so close to the front, we could feel the fire from the machines. It was amazing. And then the next day we were at the palace, and it was the everything was just so perfect. Yeah. So even the taxi driver, when he drove us there, we'd got a pass for him to get him through the palace gates, and he was just amazed. And he said he'd been driving around London for about 20 years and never been through these gates. So we got to the other side of the gates where you get out. And we said, how much is that? He said, no, you've given me the best gift today. Oh, wow. And he wouldn't take any money.
Amazing.
You know, we made his day as
He's
well.
got that pass on a frame and on
the
wall.
He probably has,
That's his object.
Wait till you interview it. So then my mum had her own footman because she was in a wheelchair. So we went off. And then I was separated from Jim and my mum and dad, and we were in the people receiving honours were in a holding room, and they had us in different rooms, but there was a TV screen so you could see the big ballroom in the palace. So I saw the Queen. And the other thing, because my mum was in a wheelchair, they were right on the front row. So I had no trouble seeing them. And then the Queen marched in behind the Gurkhas, and they played the national anthem, and I'm stood in this holding room, and as the national anthem started, my mum stood up, and I started filling up then, and it was, and then we all walked in a procession down to wait to go in, and I could see my mum, and then you went in, and you were given really strict instructions about what to do, and how to do it. So. When you curtsy, you had to either curtsy or bow. Right. But you see in the video, I do both, just to make sure. And then you have a conversation with the Queen. Oh my gosh! And there was over 1,000 of us, and she had a conversation with each one. And she knew that was a mental health nurse that had done work in supporting people to quit smoking. She had such a presence. Yeah. And she made you feel so special. I was just like
in awe when you met with someone of that calibre. Yeah.
And I think before then I'd always kind of respected her, but I didn't really admire her as much as I did that day. The way she connected with me, she had a real ability to connect with people. And then, like I said, I walked out and they took the MBE off me and put it, and I was like, oh. And then we walked round, and I sat down and I looked up, and in the balcony there was an orchestra.
Oh my gosh!
That I'd been listening to, but I hadn't realised it was this full orchestra. And I just sat, and I was just amazed.
Oh my God!
And then we went back. Mum and Dad went back on the train then, and Jim and I went to a comedy because it was like we needed to unwind. And even that was amazing, because for some reason one of the comedians was talking about curtsying and who curtsies anyway, and I said, I did today. And it just came out of my mouth. And I could feel Jim. Yeah, I was confident and competent that day, even to take on a comedian. And I could feel Jim.
Oh my gosh.
It was like
cringing.
Yeah, you're going to get it, Bill. But I didn't.
Wow.
He asked me what it was for, and I told him it was services
You can't
for
really
mental
come
health
back to that, can you?
nursing. And he said, right, let's give her, he asked me my name, and let's give her a round of applause. And then the next comedian that came on said, and we've got the MBE as well. And they all, it was ultra respectful.
Wow.
And then as I was on my way out, one of the comedians came up to me and asked for some advice about his mental health.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So every time I look at this, I remember the perfect day and how competent and confident I felt that, and how it all came together. Because my mum, when we went for a meal after we'd been at the palace, she just turned to me, she said, and this is why I'm still here.
Aww.
It meant that much to my mum and dad, and that, you know, because they're traditionalists as well. So
to be able to take you into something like that is so special.
It was.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A time in your life where you felt like you really had your shit together.
Right, this is really easy for me because it was 2007 when everything came together. So in the January we moved here.
Yeah.
In the February our son Jamie was born. I can't express what a difference that made to me as a person. It reached places that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And then in the May we got married. And
I was a bridesmaid.
You were a bridesmaid. You were your sister. Yes, gorgeous bridesmaid you were. I seem to remember. And I've still got the video. The evidence of your creativity is in that video.
Really?
How old were you? About
I was 11. It was my first year of high school.
Yeah. Well, the video.
What am I doing in the video?
You narrate. So you
always an attention.
You know, later on, I'll get it out and we'll have a look at it. Yeah, it's so creative. You go and you interview people. It happened. It started at our wedding.
Do you have your shit together?
What are you doing in the wedding? I say, I'm the bride. And then in the July, I got my masters.
Oh yeah.
So so that was all in 1 year, and I really felt like. I went back to work in September and managed, after maternity leave, and managed that transition okay. So I really felt like it had all, I felt fully fulfilled that year. It was just perfect. Daring to think that I could be as happy in my personal life as I was at work. That was the year. And I actually mentioned that in my speech, because of course I had to do my own wedding speech in the evening. I couldn't just let the boys do a speech. So I did speech, and that was one of the things that I noted, you know, that it was daring to believe that I could be that happy.
Yeah. Okay, in opposition to that then, a time in your life where you felt like you really didn't have your shit together.
That would be 18 months after our son died, Jamie. He died in 2011 when we were on a fundraising trip. I'd made a link with a hospital in Uganda and been out there with colleagues from work, and we'd established a link, and we were having a fundraising trip and family holiday. We were going on safari. Jamie was going to bring a lion home. He'd got it all worked out. He told people.
I remember him telling me about it. Yeah.
Did he? Yeah. So, because he wanted to bring a lion home, he decided in the garden where it was going to live. And I said to him, well, how are you going to bring it home? On the plane. Where's it going to sit? In my dad's seat.
Where's Jim?
How's your dad going to get home? He'll cycle home, because Jim was doing a cycle to raise money. So, but then when we got to Uganda, quite soon after we got there, he got poorly and got very sick very soon. lots of complications. We got flown to Nairobi, to a children's hospital there, but he died after 10 days. So, and, you know, our world was just completely turned upside down. The one benefit of being so far away from home was that they couldn't fly us back for 3 days after Jamie died. So Jim and I had 3 days alone, where we figured out how we were going to manage. And we were able to talk it through with each other, which we didn't realise at the time, but actually it made a big difference, because when we came back, we were dealing.
You just immediately thrown back into it.
So many, and other people's grief, and organising a funeral, and it was just it was just a whirlwind, and the world had stopped at the same time. Just a terrible time. But you go into survival mode, so our mantra was one foot in front of the other. So for the next 18 months, that's what we were doing. I really think that grief is in layers. I don't think it's a process. I think it's in layers. So the emotions that are described in the grieving process, I think, are real. And we all experience those. But I think it's a process, and I think your body and your brain can only cope with so much at a time, especially a loss as great as this. So I went back to work after 7 weeks, and in my mind I was, we need routine, need to know that I can still do it, I can still drive, I can still do.
You need purpose as well,
things.
going back to what you were saying before about knowing why you're getting up, and when something like that happens, which throws everything into question, I imagine, what I guess there's 2 different avenues you can go down, which is like, what is the point? Or I need purpose. And so something like that, which is getting you up in the morning.
My place of competence again. So I wanted to go back to work. But the other thing that was going on, my brain was tricking me, because the first time I drove home from work, I fully expected to see Jamie's toys in the garden. And there was a bit of me that was still in denial about what had happened. And that went on at various stages. When it was 6 months after he died, we got the post-mortem results, and I was reading this, and I fully expected, because it kept saying healthy weight, healthy this, healthy that, healthy the other, and I kept expecting, when I got to that last page, to say he survived, you know, and that was 6 months after. And so it went on, because I knew that he was gone,
on like
but
a cognitive level,
but it hadn't sunk in everywhere. And you do go into survival, so it was one foot in front of the other, and relief when you get to the end of each day. For a time I was counting every day I'd had without him. I didn't want the end of the first year, because I'd be entering a year where he wasn't, and it was like the whole world I saw through this Jamie hole. And it influenced everything. It made me question everything, and it really turned things upside down. But it was about 18 months after where I think that was the time when I almost gave up. And I think, my older sister Anne, she's one of the wisest people that I know, and I was talking to her about it, because I was having really, really dark thoughts about not wanting to carry on. And I'd lost my reference points in the world. Fortunately, I had the really good boss at the time, because I was just waiting for the next shit to happen. Once it's happened,
once you've experienced the worst, it's the world.
Like it's gonna happen again. And I can remember having conversations with her, asking her what she thought was going on in a dynamic in a room, because I'd lost my reference points. I'd had a flow before, so you'd have a period of ordinariness, and then you'd have a period where everything seemed to go wrong, and you'd dig in, and then you'd come through the other side, and then you'd have a really good period, and that was the ebb and flow of my life, my whole life. But this, there was no coming back from. It was not gonna, nothing could heal.
You can't change
what I was going through. No. So it completely shook my whole take on the world. I felt like I had a big secret. Because I knew that shit really did happen. People talk about it, but it really does happen. I felt, the responses I got from some people were so loving and supportive. Complete strangers. I had letters from complete strangers that it just, it's overwhelming to think that people could be, but
have
then
that much compassion.
Then there were others who weren't. There were so-called friends who didn't come to see, and I knew what was going on. It was because we were too painful for them.
It's like grief catches sometimes, isn't it? People,
and they'd look at their children. The other thing that humans do, it became painfully aware of it, is this angels and demons. When something really bad happens, you're either a good person or you're a bad person. And because people can't conceive of children dying, and then the parents must be bad. So we were probably one of the first families to be trolled on the social media. And there was no
reference point.
No, it wasn't Twitter. It was online news. So a national newspaper, who will remain nameless because I cannot utter their name.
You can imagine which one it is.
I'm sure people will figure it out. They put a story online that had lots of inaccuracies, saying things like that we'd taken Jamie to a petting farm in Uganda, and things that just weren't true. And then the comments came in, and I made the mistake of reading. Some of them were lovely comments, but there was a big majority that were nasty. How could you take such a beautiful child to such a dirty country? That was one. One of the ones that makes me and Jim laugh now. They're do-gooding lefties who shouldn't have been allowed to procreate.
Too woke.
And at the time, because I really feel for families now, we've got all those social media platforms, because at the time, it was like a knife going in. Jim wouldn't read them, and I stopped reading them.
But I think it's human nature as well. When you feel so out of control with everything, you want to control everything. So like, I would probably do the same. I'd probably go reading because you want to know everything. You want to just have a control over it, don't you? And we were at our most vulnerable. So one of our nieces went on what we used to call Web Watch, and if there was anything like that, then she would challenge it, so we didn't need to worry about it. My sister said to me was that what was going on at that stage, 18 months in, was I was beginning to look forward and to face life without so rather than just going day to day fending off and trying to cope with everything that was going on, I was starting to look forward. And of course, when you lose your child, you lose your future as well. So there's he would have inherited everything, no grandchildren. So you're losing your future. And once you start to allow yourself to cast into the future, all of that stuff can feel so overwhelming, I imagine. Like the loss, the amount of loss that you're talking about.
And the other dynamic is that 18 months in, you have got nothing left in your well. It's taken you all your energy to just get through those 18 months, and then you've got this other hurdle of having to be able to face a future without this person,
Yeah.
and you've got no energy to deal with that. And so that was what was underpinning my despair. Understanding that made a huge difference to me, because it made sense to me, because I hadn't understood why I was having these dark thoughts. Now, having gone through 18 months of grieving, it didn't make sense to me, but that, of course,
and why
it
it wasn't
sense.
like moving on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what I said to myself was a technique that I'd used at work. It was review it again in 6 months, and if you still feel this bad, then...
Right.
And that's what I did. And of course, in 6 months, my energy levels were starting to come back. Jim and I were closer than we'd ever been.
Yeah.
I know for some families it doesn't work like that, but in our loneliness, in our grief, it drew us closer together. So when we got to 2 years, life was still terribly difficult, but we were having moments of relief where we could be. And then we went on holiday with Jim's brother and sister-in-law. We went on a sailing holiday, and this was about 2.5 years after we lost Jamie. And we were where they tie a fender onto the back of the boat and you hang onto the front fender and bob over the water. And of course the fellas did it, and it was like, well, I'm going to do it. So I did it, and that was the first time I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
And that was a defining moment for me, because I knew I could still do it, because for 2.5 years I didn't think I'd ever laugh again like that.
Yeah.
And any time I did laugh, it was because I felt I ought to.
Yeah.
Because people expect, I
Yeah.
can remember...
Wanting to make other people feel comfortable.
We had a CQC inspection and got outstanding for care. And everybody was jumping up and down, and I thought, oh, I bet jump too.
Yeah.
We used to have a phrase, eyes and teeth. So I could be feeling absolutely desperate inside. But I'd go to work, eyes and teeth, people see me eyes, see me smile, and I'd get on with the day.
God.
And that worked because I succeeded, and I carried on working. Some people can't go back to work after they've lost a child, but I managed to do that. But the downside of that was I did disassociate.
Yeah.
So from good feelings as well as bad feelings, I became these eyes and teeth.
Yeah.
And it worked while I was at work, and then I'd come home and crumple.
Right.
It was a strategy. I'm not sure it was the best strategy, but it got me through to the other side. And then we gradually learnt to live alongside.
Yeah.
And that became our mantra. We'll live alongside. And what Jim and I had said to each other when we were in Nairobi on our own is that one life had been lost. Jamie wouldn't want us to not live our lives. Yeah. So that has been the other thing that we've reminded each other of when we've been at our lowest points, that there's life, and we owed it to Jamie to live our lives and find the meaning in the loss. And one of the things that happened was people just started giving us money, randomly giving us money.
Yeah.
There would be money pushed through the letterbox. And again, it's totally unexpected, but it's what are we going to do with this money? So very quickly, the colleagues that we'd had the link with in Uganda rallied, and very quickly it became clear that we were going to set up a charity.
Wow.
And we were going to continue the work in Uganda and find the meaning.
And the purpose.
Yeah, because we were sure that Jamie's 4 years meant more, that there was other lives that could still be touched by his life. So the charity, you know, the funding that came to the charity, it just felt meant, Kate.
Yeah.
You know, we'd get to a point where we were thinking, right, we've done what we can do. And then somebody gave us a £30,000 legacy.
Wow.
So it's like, oh, and then more money came and more money came. We did a lot of fundraising as well. And that was amazing because people were doing things that they wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
But inspired by Jamie.
Yeah.
And that we did the abseiling down the church tower, and there were people screaming on the way down, and then saying to me, "I've only done that for Jamie." You know, I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for Jamie.
Yeah.
And that amazed me as well, that people were so inspired because of his life to challenge themselves and to stretch themselves. So the money came in. The team that we had around us were extraordinary, because a lot of the time Jim and I have been distracted, especially when we went on to adopt the boys. But they've done the bulk of the work. So we went from working with one hospital to working with 25.
Wow.
We've supported staff to train. We've encouraged hospitals to develop dedicated mental health services. And now we know that countless lives have been touched by Jamie that wouldn't have been otherwise. And it all felt meant, because it was a time when the Ugandan government were thinking differently about mental illness as well. So it all happened at the right time. But a lot of what has changed has been the focus on the community, which we supported. We built one unit, but then we realised that actually we'd get more for our resources by having the community focus. So that's where we've developed, working with the village leaders to support them and to educate others around mental illness, as well as the professional mental health staff, and it's just gone on. So now we're at a time where the charity is coming to a close, but the work won't. And when I went over in September, it was so amazing, Kate, because I was meeting lots of people that I'd not met before. I visited lots of the projects with the team and trustees, and people knew Jamie's story, and they obviously felt that they'd been blessed because of Jamie and his story and the work that the charity had done. And all the places that we went to pledged to continue the work even after the charity has finished. And it just felt time to step away and let Ugandan people take it forward. There was a group of professionals that we'd supported who were setting up their own organisation, and in their words, it was to keep the mental health movement going. You know, so we'll keep in touch with them, of course we will. And I'm hoping to go out, because the other thing I felt was the peace that came from knowing that we'd fulfilled we'd found the meaning and fulfilled it. And Jamie, his reason for being on life was complete. I never know how I'm going to feel when I go back to Uganda. Very mixed feeling, especially when I go to the hospital where Jamie fell ill. But they treat me like family there. And you go to the unit that we built, and there's a plaque on the outside, and it's Jamie smiling down on people as they come through the door. And it's just, he's had such an impact.
His spirit is there.
It's my spiritual home. Uganda is my spiritual home. That's where I feel most at peace and closest to God, to that greater thing. It's been so meant, all of that. The people who've been involved in Uganda, the people who've been involved over here, and the difference that it's made. We were talking about when I didn't. But that was when I had my spiritual ship together. It was in Uganda.
But no, you've spoken through how it went from a time of not feeling like you've had your ship together, and the process that's been on. And now, you know, I meet you at a time where it feels like you're more able to, we're able to talk about Jamie and, you know, remember him, and that closure of having gone over to Uganda and feeling at peace there, like, the process of moving through it, because you say grief is layers. You know, when we say like the seven stages of grief, sounds like it's like a box tick thing, but the layers thing that you're talking about,
it's not. It is multi.
Yeah.
And it's still, you know, although I don't see the world through a Jamie Hole anymore, he's part of me and part of our lives.
Completely.
I see him when I look at Jim.
Yeah.
I you know,
they're identical.
Yeah.
There's a picture on the cupboards of them next to each other as children, and they're creepily identical.
Yeah. One of the other defining moments was when we were in India and we were seeing relatives of a friend of mine at work who all lived in India. So we had a great time travelling around. One of the relatives was an astrologer, quite a famous astrologer over there.
Oh.
And he asked to do our readings, and I was like, I'm not into that. So it's like, no, you're not doing mine. But Jim said, oh, go on then. So he took all these details, and it's all about the planets, and so we were with him, and he was feeding back to Jim on Jim's reading, and then he said to Jim, there's an emptiness. There's an emptiness, there's this real feeling of an emptiness with you. And he turned to me and he said, and Avril, I've been reading your face. And I'm thinking, how dare you? I didn't give my consent. And he said, and you share the emptiness.
Yeah.
And I straight away, I think, you mean sadness. And I said to him, do you mean sadness?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if he knew we lost Jamie or not. And I said, do you mean, is it sadness that you're seeing? And he said, no. Sadness is God-given. That lives with you.
Wow.
This is emptiness. There's something you can do about this.
Wow.
You know, and that completely stopped me in my tracks. And that was another defining moment, because Jim and I had started talking about adoption. But not, it was such a complicated decision, so many emotions. Some of it was guilt, you know, if we adopt, are we letting go of Jamie? You know, it was strange. There's no, you go all over the place.
Completely.
But what he said was, Jamie's with you.
Yeah.
And you've got emptiness. And then another defining moment was Jim's brother and his wife had a little girl who's got Prader-Willi syndrome.
Right.
And when she was born, she couldn't feed herself, so she had a tube. She was tiny.
Yeah.
And I can remember meeting her and just holding her and gazing at her. She was so vulnerable. And Jim was stood beside me, and I looked up to him and I said to him, there's other kids need loving in this world.
Yeah.
So we kind of gravitated towards the idea of adoption. I was looking at a supplement in The Guardian, which is, I will say The Guardian because that's my paper. And it was a Saturday supplement coming up to Christmas. And it was a series of photographs, and I've kept it. It was a series of photographs by photographers. So it was their favourite personal photograph.
Yeah.
And there was this picture of two boys beaming at the camera with sacks full of presents and just joyful.
Yeah.
And in the caption it said, our first Christmas with our adopted boys.
Wow.
You know, and it was, so it felt like it was
those little signs.
Lots of signs. And so we made the decision that we would adopt, and now, you know, we are fulfilled. We are complete. In fact, there's no room for much else.
There's no room at the end.
Because parenting children who've experienced trauma is very different. And we've had to learn a lot to make sure that we're the best that we can be for the boys. So that's had its own challenges. But it feels like we're where we're meant to be at this moment.
Part of the grief, I imagine, from not only losing Jamie was also the grief of identity as like mother and father.
Yeah.
And just because Jamie isn't in a physical form anymore, that doesn't stop you from having that side of you, or that love to give, and all of that energy, and where do you put it when your child is no longer there? So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
The journey that you've gone on, and because you have that to give, and you have such a wonderful life that you could give to 2 children.
Yeah. It doesn't take anything away from Jamie and our relationship with Jamie.
Yeah.
And
but he unlocked that within you, didn't he? Yeah.
Well, because if I hadn't had Jamie, then I wouldn't have had that experience, that human changing experience that I had becoming a mother.
Yeah.
So because we'd already said, when we were trying for Jamie, we'd already said if we get pregnant, great.
Yeah.
If I get pregnant, the royal we,
the seahorse.
If not, then we're not going to do IVF. We won't adopt. And then that whole experience of being a mum, seeing the vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it still feels there are children who need loving.
Yeah.
And we've got love.
Yeah.
So let's love.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we do.
3 things that make you feel like shit.
Right, okay. When I can't exercise.
Okay.
It's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Always has been. I think it's the thing that keeps me balanced.
Yeah, grounded.
It's that exertion, getting things out of my system.
Yeah.
I have some of my best ideas when I'm running. I'm a big runner. But also I can just zone out. So I can run 6 miles and not know where I've been at the end of it, because I'm just completely hypnotised.
Yeah.
It's just part of me.
Yeah.
So if I can't exercise, then I'm off kilter.
Yeah.
I'm like a cat on a hot tin roof. When I see the science around trauma and developmental trauma, but it's not applied to our children, that breaks my heart. We've learned so much about the impact that it has on children's brains and what different parenting, different approaches they need from school, from services. Some people completely get it and are amazing.
Yeah.
But others, they try to apply traditional methods to our children, which we know won't work. In fact, not only do they not work, but they harm, because it feeds into lots of children who've experienced trauma are hypersensitive to shame. So a lot of the ways that children are treated at school just pick at this shame and this sense of not being good enough. So the science is there. There's a lot more science around now than there was, but it's still not rooted. So teachers aren't being taught different ways of managing behaviour. They're taught traditional reward, good, bad, and labelling. We had a while where our younger one was coming home and telling me what colour he was, because they had a chart, red, bad, green, good, and he would come home and be hyper anxious to tell me, I'm red today, Mum, I'm red today. And it's like, I don't care what colour you are, I still love you, you know. But trying to have the conversations with the professionals, not being heard. We have got a personal team from post-adoption who've supported us from the start, having to bring them in to speak to, because they're not listening to me, reminding people. Sometimes on emails I put MBE. So that makes me feel shit, because how many other kids, how many other families who adopt are left to their own devices and don't get the support. These are our most vulnerable children. The science is there, but the resources and the support aren't. And parents, adoptive parents, have to become Olympic parents to get the support that their children deserve. They've already been let down by adults, and then they continue to be let down. So that makes me feel very shitty. And then the judging. I think the human tendency to judge each other is really unhealthy and very destructive. It's on all sorts of different levels, but the one for me is the angels and demons.
Yeah.
So when I was progressing at work, I was a senior nurse, and then I became what was known as a service manager. So manager, not nurse. And overnight, people's attitude towards me changed.
That's so interesting.
Oh, it really stopped me in my tracks. I remember one person saying to me, bringing in a change on a ward, and somebody that had been there when I was a student nurse said, I remember you when you were wet behind the ears, and now here you are telling me what to do, you know. And it was like, the last thing I did was tell people what to do. That's not my style. But that misjudging, and that's the classic one. So in the NHS, clinical staff good, managers bad.
Right.
Well, clinical staff couldn't be as great as they are if they didn't have the managers getting them resources. Look, and especially managers like me who have a clinical background.
I'm one of the good guys.
Don't judge me like that. You know, so that's one.
It's very binary, isn't it?
We think we're such an evolved society, but actually we're very primitive.
Yeah.
We still revert to evil, good.
Yeah.
And categorise people without having a human connection with them.
Completely.
The other one that we're experienced a lot in now is younger son has quite challenging behaviour. So if we're out in public and he's overwhelmed and he's showing us with his behaviour that he's overwhelmed and struggling, then the judging, you can feel it. You just feel it. That just adds to the pressure.
Completely.
In the moment.
Yeah.
And you'll very occasionally you'll get another adult trying to intervene, and you're just thinking, back off. You've no idea what's going on here. Or they'll make a comment about being rude to your parents, and you know, and when we've been on holiday, we've had knocks on the door.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, I feel angry about because they're judging our children and our parenting when they know nothing about us. It has made me much more aware as well. And if I see a parent struggling in a supermarket or something, then I will try some of the techniques that I know are helpful to me. And the main one is distraction. Wow. So if I can distract the child even for a second, then it just takes that pressure out of it.
Gosh.
Or I will give the warmest smile that I can to the parents that say, I'm with you.
Solidarity.
It is. So I won't do anything but give them that acknowledgement that I can see how tough it is, and I'm with them, and you can do that with a smile. Yeah, one of the early things we learned about parenting children who've been traumatised is that behaviour, however it is an expression of something that's going on. Once you can get behind that, then you're getting a connection with your child. And I think it's the same with anybody. It really is that people do bad things. Some people are just bad. I do get that as well. But a lot of people who do bad things are people who are in a bad place, and whatever their circumstances, they're bringing the worst out in them. Just like you could put them in a different set of circumstances and see a completely different side to them. And I think we struggle to hold that because you touched on it earlier, it's that sense of control. That if you can say, well, they're bad people, then you don't have to worry because you can disassociate from that because they're a bad person. They're not a whole person, they're a bad person, you know, and it's part of the way that we delude ourselves that we have control when actually we don't have a lot of control in the world.
Hey, Ant.
Hey.
You do a great job in editing this podcast, might I say. If people like the podcast, what do they need to do?
Like it.
What else?
Follow it on social media.
And then what?
They could share it with every single person they know.
Thanks, Ant. You can go back to your corner now.
Bye.
Okay, in opposition to that then, 3 things that make you feel like the shit.
Well, the first one's obvious, exercise. It has to be. And now I've started doing resistance training because ladies of a certain age, it's better if they... So I'm doing less miles running and more weights and resistance. So I'm feeling stronger. And I've not felt that strong because it's always been about running for me. So that's different. And I do, you know, if I
the benefit.
Yeah, I can have a really good run or a good workout at the gym, and I feel like I'm okay. You know, I'm balanced.
Yeah.
And then the other things are the things that confirm competence and confidence. So at work, that was seeing ideas and innovations that I'd grown over the years of experience and know and just being part of that world, seeing those come to fruition, that was a sign that gave me a signal of my own competence. It sort of reflects it back. Now it's different. I retired when I was 55 to spend more time with the boys, and now my competence is about having 2 empty clothes baskets. Having 4 empty plates. Meal times in this house are a challenge because our boys have both got sensitivities, the sensory processing difficulties and sensitivities around food. Daniel in particular, he's hypersensitive to texture and to taste. So it makes... Oh, and Alex is trying to be a vegetarian as well. He really wants to be a vegetarian. So Jim's always... And me, I like to eat healthy as well. So we try... You know, I now I've got time, I cook things from scratch. But then I have to design around 4 different, very different tastes. Yeah. So that we end up with 4 different meals. Wow. And then if the plates are cleared, my world is complete. Success. So I measure myself on things like that. The other thing, of course, is knowing that we've got the right team around us now. And that's, I'm constantly working on that. But at the moment, we've got really good people around us, and that a sense that we're doing okay as well. Yeah. And then the third thing is when our boys achieve something. Oh, do you know, I can't describe it really, but knowing what shit they've been through in their little lives, and then seeing it. So riding a bike, Daniel, you know, with all his difficulties, and he can coordinate his legs, his arms, his eyes, and to do that, he horse rides. Wow. He's a comic, so he does shows for us, and he can take on different accents. I don't know where he gets this gift from, but he just has us laughing. And Alex, he won a national writing competition. Amazing. We went to London for the final. He didn't know that he'd won it at this stage. No way. And he'd written a song, and he stood up in front of the room. Peter Capaldi was presenting. And he stood up and he sang it. 10 years old, and he sang it so sweetly. You know, and I was bursting with pride. God, and he went to high school this time, and he's managed to make that transition. And smile and just enjoy the because for his needs, high school is much more suited because there's more variety. He's not in the same classroom all day. He's got more sensory stimuli. He's loving it, and that actually, it makes me feel good. I love that. It really does.
Something that makes you lose your shit in a positive and a negative way.
Well, the positive, that's obvious. When the kids aren't getting the support that they need, then I will stand up for them. And now I'm not working, I'm not as restrained in the way that I do that. So I remember there was a paediatrician once who was trying to discharge Daniel, and I was saying, but his needs haven't gone away, they'll change as he gets older. How can you discharge him? And he said to me, my dear, the NHS cannot see people regularly just because you think they need seeing, you know. And I gave it my full... I have worked in the NHS for 37 years, and I know I have the right to a second opinion. I would like a second opinion, please. And he crumpled. yes, madam, I saw that. And we did get a second opinion. And
Do
the,
you know
the
who I am
next
kind of vibes?
paediatrician was much better.
Wow.
But it's that
Yeah.
sort of situation. I'm just not afraid to let it out when I see injustice. About purpose. My purpose is to stop these boys being let down any more than they already have done.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, in the bad way.
Yeah.
Okay, so our boys have difficulty with big emotions.
Right.
And we, as a family, use the chimp approach,
Okay.
which I don't know if you've heard of.
I've never heard of this.
So it's Professor Steve Peters.
Okay.
Who he wrote about the chimp paradox, which you might have heard of.
Maybe. Yeah.
Well, this he wrote for children. So it's an activity book. It shows a child that we've all got our own chimp.
Right.
And the chimp is your survival brain. So it's your
Okay.
reacting brain, not your thinking brain.
Wow.
But these concepts are quite difficult for a child to understand. So we talk about a chimp. Wonderful thing about the chimp is that you embrace the chimp. You're not trying to get rid of the chimp because you need the chimp to get you out of the road if there's a car coming. You need the chimp to stop you burning yourself.
So it's like animal instinct almost.
Yeah, it's your survival.
Yeah.
It's the survival brain. So it reacts without thinking.
Right.
Children who have been traumatised spend a lot of time in their survival brain.
Right.
And what that means is that they're not hearing what's going on around them. They're not thinking about consequences because they're in the moment surviving.
Right.
So with this approach, we all have a chimp. We name our chimp. So my chimp's called Gertrude. Jim's is called Growler.
Okay.
Daniel's is called Flinty. And Alex's is called Hissy. So when the chimps have control, then that's when you're in your survival brain. So what we're trying to show the kids is strategies to keep control of the chimp. So the chimp's working for you, not against you. So we have code word as well. So if we see any of our chimps getting control, then we say the code word, and you usually end up laughing. You think of the funniest word. So the minute it's llama damma ding dong, and which is hard to get out in the moment. But it does. We had supercalifragilistic, and it's by the time you finish saying it, everybody's laughing. So this is when my chimp gets control.
Yeah.
So, and it's usually with the boys. So the boys struggle to play together. They've got like Olympic style sibling rivalry. So they will physically fight each other. So we do encourage them, and we're trying to support them to build a better relationship. But you have to be mindful, and you have to be with them. And you have to support them all the time. So they were on the trampoline. Now, my first mistake was not getting on the trampoline with them. So I should have been there with them. But I was sitting, having a cup of tea, watching.
Yeah.
And they were playing really nicely together. And then it started to deteriorate.
Yeah.
Again, at that point, I should have seen that and got on.
Yeah.
But my chimps get in control here because they're doing that even though they know I'm sitting there and they're not allowed to fight. They're doing it, so that's triggering my chimp. So I say, get away from each other. They're in survival brain by this time, not hearing me at all. So again, instead of getting on, doing what I should be doing, I raise my voice and say exactly the same thing again, but louder. So of course they carry on. And then I do it a third time. By this time I'm screeching, all the neighbours, everybody can hear me, and I'm screeching, completely chimp in control, and it still makes no difference. So then I still have to clamber onto the trampoline, get hold of one of their hands, guide them away and do the things. And then I have to repair it. And then we have to have a conversation when everything's calm about how mummy's chimp got control then, and didn't she screech? I do it and I think I'm never going to do that again. I'm not going to let it trigger me. At least my chimp is staying in its cage. And then I hear myself screeching again. The good thing is the kids aren't hearing it because they're so... But it's just that repeated. You know, you know something, but still your chimp gets control. So
that's fascinating.
That's
Yeah.
That's my one thing that I'm working on.
Putting Gertrude away.
Yeah, get Gertrude in her place.
A moment that you found some shit out about yourself.
Well, I think this was childbirth. I was shocked at how my drives, my focus, how much they changed after I'd had Jamie.
Yeah.
How, you know, a lot of the things that me and Jim used to do, the scuba diving, the mountain climbing, that I didn't have the same urges to do because my job was to keep myself safe.
That's
for this little
interesting.
person. Same at work. I didn't want to be as work for as long hours because I was missing out on spending time with Jamie. What the interesting thing was, I was very much more focused when I was at work, so I might have been there for less hours, but when I was there I was full 100% for the hours that I was there. The focus was amazing, but it felt like my needs had gone from centre stage to side stage, and Jamie's needs were front and centre. And when I realised that was happening, I loved it.
Really?
I absolutely loved it. And yet I thought in the lead up, my life will carry on. I'll have a little fella, but he'll come along. He'll want to ride his bike. He'll want to come running. He'll learn to dive as soon as he's ready. You know, I really didn't expect that my feelings and my drives would change like that, and that I would love it in the way that I did and not feel like I was diminished in some way. I wasn't. I was more whole than I'd ever been. And the same with the boys.
Yeah.
When they came to us, I started counting the days till I could retire. When I retired, I thought I'd still work a couple of days because I need to use that bit of my brain, don't I? And I haven't.
Yeah.
Because my focus is on the boys, and I have not missed. In fact, I can see now I've got some separation between me and work, how a lot of the things that I used to do day to day didn't have a purpose, didn't make a difference. So that's been a bit of a relief to let all that go in. But I have been surprised at how little I've missed work. Having been so work focused.
Yeah.
It could be because I was ready, because I'd achieved what I wanted to. I'd done it for so long, so it could have been that, but actually I think it's more about being fully there for the boys and wanting to be. I know it's not the same for all women, and I'm not saying this is how it should be. What I'm trying to say is how unexpected it was, because I'd always regarded myself as a career woman, and everything else was a bonus, but actually my career was a bonus, and everything else is what really matters to me.
It's almost like your career was laying the groundwork for this life.
Because Kate, because if I hadn't done all of that, then I think I'd be sitting here thinking I could be doing, I wonder what would have happened, where I could have got to, and feel like I was missing out. But I know I'm not. Because I've been there, done that, and now I'm wholly ready for what I'm doing now.
I had a very similar conversation with one of my really good friends about, he was saying, I'm really grateful that I didn't get all of the things that I wanted at the time that I thought that I wanted them. And like reflecting on your life, you know, you were building your career whilst at the same time, you know, you met Jim later on, but actually if you'd have got that relationship when you'd have wanted it early, like you say, you and Jim wouldn't have been ready for each other, or you wouldn't have had the groundwork ready to support the boys in the way that you need to, and all of those things. So it's kind of, those things have happened for a reason, I guess.
And it is about being open. And I think what you said there was quite true of me, that if I'd have got what I thought I wanted and needed at the time I thought I wanted and needed it, then my career and my family would have been very different.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't change my career for anything.
Yeah.
That has been massive for me. But equally, this moment is right for me, and I fully intend to make the most of it.
Shittest piece of advice you received?
Toughen up. If you're going to be a mental health nurse, you need to be a bit tougher.
Yeah.
I think my style has actually been very positive in that environment. And if I had toughened up, then I would have been putting barriers up that would have stopped me. So although it's meant that I have agonised over decisions, perhaps more than other directors, and I've felt things acutely, I wouldn't change that. And I don't wish I'd been tougher. Even when I know that I've been taken advantage of by people who have seen my collaborative approach as a weakness.
Right.
Better piece of advice was, don't change, but learn how to cope with some of the distress that you'll feel because you are empathic and you do feel it for other people. That would have been better advice, not toughen up. You know,
that's cutting off your superpower, actually, I think.
It would have. I'd have been over before I'd started. I would.
That's rubbish
And I've been
advice.
very careful to, because over the years, sometimes when people have been distressed at work and I've been supporting them, they say, I need to get a thicker skin. And I say, no. What we need to do is help you to deal with the emotion that you're feeling. And we need to help you with that. It's not just down to you to do that.
That's so true.
All this resilience training, it's like putting the onus on the individual and blaming them for not being tough enough. When actually, often it's the environment that people are working in that we need to change so they can be at the best.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Okay, shit you wish you'd known sooner.
Forget about plan A.
Yeah.
If I'd have hung on to my plan A,
God, yeah.
I'd have been nowhere.
15-year-old boy.
In and out.
Yeah.
I really think you get ample chances. You don't. You don't only get one shot.
Yeah.
So like I remember somebody saying to me when I was deciding to go into nursing, no, you need to go to university now. You don't get a degree now, you'll never get one.
Yeah.
Well, I've still not got a first degree, but I've got a master's degree.
Yeah.
You know, it just
And an MBE.
and an MBE.
Yeah.
And I think I thought very carefully about this because our boys, because I don't want them ever to feel that they are our plan B. And that really got to me because they're not.
Yeah.
They are our plan A in the circumstances that we found ourselves.
Yeah.
So what I'd say is look at the circumstances that you're in and find ways of living your fullest life in those circumstances and forget about plan A and B.
Yeah.
Because somehow, if you can't achieve plan A, then anything else that comes is diminished.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas if you
open and
you're just
responding.
open and living your fullest life, whatever your circumstances, then I think you will be more open to like opportunities to do a master's when you're 40, and that's what I wish I'd known, because I think I've spent time chasing things that I thought I needed. I didn't. If I was just thinking, right, these are my circumstances, how am I going to live my fullest life? Then I would have saved a lot of energy and a lot of blind alleys.
Yeah. Okay, we're at the moment of a shit shot. So that's a photo that to the outside eye looks like you had your shit together, but at the time it was taken, you definitely didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, okay, explain what we're seeing.
It's me standing outside 10 Downing Street looking very, very powerful.
Yeah. Great big smile on your face.
Yeah.
Who was behind that door at the time?
It was Theresa May.
Oh.
I've got such mixed feelings about this day. So it was World Mental Health Day. The year before I retired, and I'd been chairing a national directors of mental health directors of nursing group, and doing various things. So I got invited to this reception at Downing Street. So I went, and it was an international. So there was all sorts of dignitaries there from different countries, all with a focus on mental health. So I got there, and it was dead exciting. I met the cat, went in, walked up the staircase, that you see on Love Actually with all the prime ministers. And that was awesome, just walking up that staircase. Then we got to the reception, and it just didn't feel right. I didn't feel right. I felt like I didn't belong. Downing Street itself, it's not modern. It's traditional. It's not modern. They were serving wine in an afternoon. Now, I couldn't believe this, because I remember having an argument with the chair of our trust back in 1999 when they served wine at a work function, and I was working in drug and alcohol services at the time, and I really challenged him about it and said, you've got nurses here who are going to get in their car and go and visit patients, and you're giving them wine, and it was...
And then you've got people running the country.
And it just...
in charge of the big red button.
Like they want us to believe that we're a modern, forward-thinking society, and we're serving wine in an afternoon and haven't got beyond that in faded... Everything felt faded, and the whole thing just felt...
really odd,
And I just didn't want to be there. So although, it was mixed, because I still liked the experience of walking up, and I still felt very privileged to be there representing nursing. And that picture on Twitter got the most comments, positive comments, I have to say, than anything else I ever posted on Twitter, because of the way that I looked. When actually what was going on was...
So interesting.
This was still hierarchical, was still traditional. We're not letting go of tradition at the expense of progress. And ordinary people, I think, who aren't in power, who aren't rich, are feeling that more and more now.
Totally.
And because now the power should be in networked communities and networked leadership, but we're still clinging on to this hierarchical structure that means that you can have a prime minister in power who we didn't even vote for.
It's mad.
It doesn't make sense. And the older I get, the more it doesn't make sense to me. We do have it framed, but when I look at it, I see through my smile.
You see through the door.
I can see through that door. And I wouldn't want to be there. And that was the other thing I came away with, having met Theresa May, thinking, why would anybody do her job?
Honestly.
So the competent people are not going to be drawn into roles like that when you see how little control they really have and what little difference they can, unless they're like another prime minister we had who just dismissed everything and just did their own thing anyway.
It's like what they say, if you want to go into politics, don't. Because like you're not the right person to be like, it's like career politicians, isn't it? And actually the people who don't want to be politicians probably should be the politicians, because they would have more awareness of these kinds of things. Okay, so Avril, have you got your shit together?
Nope.
No?
Neither do I want it, thank you. Because to me, if you've got your shit together, then you're not learning, because you've found a place of being competent and confident forever. So
or it's the illusion of having your shit together, like the behind the door thing.
You're kidding yourself that you've made a way of So I enjoy learning, and I enjoy finding out new things about me. I enjoy the challenge of Gertrude, keeping her as a helpful Gertrude rather than a sabotaging Gertrude. So I've not got my shit together, but I'm comfortable with that. I'm okay with that. Good. I will keep growing. Maybe when I'm 100, ask me again.
We'll get you back on. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. I've enjoyed it.